Good morning, everybody, at least if it's morning where you're at. Happy to have you here on the Basketball Bulletin. I've got my energy drink of choice. Hopefully you guys have your coffee or whatever it is that you drink. So bright and early in the morning, 7:30 a.m. Pacific time right now. Not my normal time of day. Normally I would not be awake at this time, but NBA free agency. No rest for the wicked right now. We've got a lot to get into. A lot has changed. A lot has happened since last night around the NBA. Happy to have you all here. If you haven't done so yet, hit the subscribe button, turn on those notifications as well. Let's start here with LeBron James. This is quite an update here in terms of the LeBron James free agent market and where things could possibly lead to and where he could go. Give this a listen. This is Shams Charania here.
To land LeBron James as it stands today, early morning, July 1st.
Only LeBron James knows in his heart where he's leaning on any of these teams. That, you can't rule out another team also coming out of the woodwork. Is there a Denver Nugget, potential pitch that they have? There's a slew of other teams, San Antonio, the Knicks. Like, if you are a NBA team that has contending aspirations, LeBron James, according to my sources, it is not a financially driven decision. That means that if you want to slot him in, if you want to pitch him on a minimum, pitch him on an exception, pitch him on a non-max contract, clearly there seems to be a window there. So I think a lot of the focus around the league is around those three teams, but you never know what can take shape.
To land LeBron.
Okay. Oh, my God. Shams Charania just said if you want to pitch LeBron James on a minimum, go for it. Like, nothing is off the table here. What that means, for anybody who doesn't catch what Shams is saying here, what that ultimately means around the NBA market is that LeBron, he can go anywhere at any time. That means that the NBA's market, the NBA economy, as much as we talk about, well, hey, beginning of July, it's that first week of free agency, that's when everything needs to take place. No, not if he's literally willing to play for a minimum contract. Now, I'm sure LeBron James doesn't dislike money. He would like to get more if possible, and there's certainly pathways to do that. The Warriors can offer $15 million, potentially using a mid-level exception. The Heat, maybe a little bit trickier. They did just lose Norman Powell, though. We'll talk about some of the new signings that have just come out this morning. There are three really big ones that came out this morning. Well, high-level role player signings that we'll talk about that came out. He wants to wind up with the Cavs. They have a problem trying to fit him in under their salary cap. This is from Mark Stein last night. But again, if it's a minimum, it doesn't matter. If it's a minimum, it does not matter where anybody's at unless they are hard capped at the first or second apron and they cannot clear the flexibility to do it. Any team can sign LeBron James. Any team could sign him at any time. I don't expect them to do it, but if LeBron's willing to play for a damn minimum, he could sign in February. He could sign in March. It doesn't matter. He could say, you know what? I'm going to spend the next 6 months on the golf course, and I'll see you in 2027. LeBron could do that. Happy July, everybody. By the way, again, that's the extreme situation. But if that's the extent that LeBron is willing to go to, hey, I don't care if you've got a mid-level. I don't care if you've got a minimum. I want to hear your pitch. He can go anywhere. He can do whatever he once. And the NBA salary cap does not matter unless the one scenario where a team is right up against the second apron hard cap or a first apron hard cap. That's the only scenario where a team could not just add LeBron to their roster and say, he's LeBron James, minimum contract. Let's go. Now, Mark Stein, I believe it was actually, we've got a new deal here. We got to keep an eye on everything that's happening right now. Vooch. Oh, my gosh. What a bargain. Nick Vucevic. Back, everybody. I need a breaking news button. Here on the bulletin. Nick Vucevic back to the Orlando Magic. Check this out. $3.9 million deal. Look, Vooch is not very mobile or anything like that anymore, but this also tells you, remember, this is what we do here. We're going to break down not just what's happening, but what this means in the bigger picture context. To me, this is telling us that, number one, yes, this is a great deal for the Orlando Magic. Also, it probably means bye-bye Mo Wagner. I know a lot of people are jumping in saying Goga Batadze, Wendell Carter Jr. I'd say this is a definite, because we already heard these rumblings that Mo Wagner is on his way out in Orlando. This tells you he's done. Now, could this lead to Goga Batadze? Could this lead to Wendell Carter Jr. being on the way out? Maybe. But right now you're seeing an NBA where teams are stacking bigs. The big man market doesn't have a lot of depth on it, and the position is now back in style. And so I wouldn't jump to the conclusion just yet that this means that Wendell Carter Jr. or Goga Batadze is available. If I'm the Orlando Magic, I would absolutely be listening. There were some rumors the other day about Goga potentially being a target for some teams. I'm failing to remember which team it was that was interested in trading for him. But if you're Orlando, you could capitalize on a market that is starved for centers and say, let's sell into that and get a really nice return for Goga Batadze. So I wouldn't put it past Orlando. I think that could be some very opportunistic selling if they do decide to do that with Goga. But I think the one thing this definitely confirms is Mo Wagner probably done here in Orlando, leaving his brother Franz to stay behind with the Magic. So Vooch spent 9 years with Orlando. This is probably going to be the final stop of his career. This is probably a chance for him to go back to the Magic and retire there. $3.9 million is a great deal for Orlando. And Vooch, not a particularly mobile big at any point of his career. That mobility issue has become even greater now. But as a rotation piece, and especially as a guy that can shoot a little bit from the outside as a big, we know the Orlando Magic, they need all the shooters they can get. I think this is a really solid deal for Vooch and for the Orlando Magic, and a good opportunity for him to finish out his career in a place that he wants. All right. More deals coming in, everybody. More deals coming in. Gotta love the NBA offseason. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about the LeBron situation. I think Golden State, Miami, Cleveland, these are the teams that are seen as being in the lead in the chase for LeBron. Again, if he is literally willing to play for the minimum, and by the way, Lakers fans, if you're coming in, if we're hearing LeBron is willing to play for the minimum, there's zero chance of a sign and trade where the Lakers would get some kind of an asset in return. This would be LeBron James leaving the Lakers and nothing coming back in this scenario if he's willing to play for the minimum. Now, if he wants more than what a team could offer, let's say LeBron says, I need $20 million, and that's what he wants from, say, we got another deal. It's a minor one, but I'll talk about it. Let's say it's a deal from the Golden State Warriors, and I want $20 million. All right, he would need the Lakers' help in order to accomplish that. Or the same would be true with Cleveland or Miami. But those are teams to keep an eye on. Got another deal here, and it is Mike Conley. Mike Conley, the veteran. I've long been an admirer of Mike Conley's game. Unfortunately, I can no longer admire Mike Conley's game. He went to the Boston Celtics. That's right. Mike Conley, what an incredible NBA career he has had. Obviously, nearing the end of his career. 1-year deal. Very clearly, that means a veteran minimum contract for the Boston Celtics. I don't think this necessarily signals too much for Boston. Like, does this mean Boston is moving on from Derek White? No, Mike Conley, just a veteran presence in the locker room. Another guard to slot in. They lost Anthony Simons via trade for Vooch. Vooch now on the way out. And you bring back Mike Conley, just a steady veteran presence ball handler, shoots a high percentage from three, has for years, plays low mistake basketball. And really, if you're going to add a veteran to the end of your bench, you can't ask for a better guy than Mike Conley, just where it's not going to be a concern. Like, is this guy going to be complaining about minutes? Is this guy going to not play his role or any of that? No, Mike Conley is very, very aware of what his role is. Hit some big shots last year for Minnesota, even in the playoffs. But we know where we're at with Mike Conley. Even the 3-point percentage dropped significantly with Minnesota last year, lower than I thought, 34% from deep. But Mike Conley, this is probably going to be I would imagine, the final stop of his career, dropping off that age cliff right now. But if you're the Boston Celtics and you just want a great veteran for the end of your bench that can occasionally come in and knock down a shot for you or make the right play, Mike Conley, good position there to be at. All right, let's get back to this LeBron stuff. So where does he ultimately land? I'll tell you where I'd like to see LeBron land. I think I can make arguments for any of those three teams. I wish LeBron all the success wherever he goes. Coming from a Lakers fan perspective, I appreciate the hell out of what LeBron did for the Lakers and want him all the success wherever he goes next, just as he's had success in every stop that he's been in so far. It would be a lot of fun to see LeBron in Golden State with Steph Curry. It would be a lot of fun to see LeBron with Giannis and Bam in Miami. But I'll tell you the place I really want to see him go. It's Cleveland. It's Cleveland. I think that's the storybook ending there. I'd like to see LeBron finish his career in the same place where it started. Now, my number one preference was, of course, LeBron finishes his career with the Lakers, but that's obviously not happening. I think back, there was a game back in the springtime when LeBron James went to, I guarantee Trevor wouldn't wish LeBron all the success if he was a Celtic. That's fair. That is fair. There was a game where LeBron went back to Cleveland, and a tribute video was played for him, and he teared up. He teared up like it meant something to him. And in that moment, I wondered, being in Cleveland means a lot to him. I think it would be special if he finishes his career where it started. And I'm purely thinking about bookending his career that way. Could he have a better chance to win in Golden State? Could he have a better chance to win in Miami? Maybe, but I don't necessarily think it's a better chance to win than he would have in Cleveland. I know LeBron, James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, a bit of a clunky fit, but that's not a concern I've got with LeBron. That's more with James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, a backcourt defensively. Is that really going to work out there? An actual defensive backcourt. Evan Mobley, a lot put on him to be a really good defensive piece there. And then is LeBron really going to play the three there? Are you going to start Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, LeBron James? There's some questions, right? Logistically, how you make that work. I saw Brian Windhorst suggesting that the Cleveland Cavaliers should trade Evan Mobley for Jaylen Brown, and that actually does make a little bit of sense. I'd have some concerns about that team's defense if you're removing Evan Mobley, replacing him with Jaylen Brown, but that would certainly open up a spot for LeBron James to slide right in there with the Cavs, and then you've got Mitchell, Harden, Brown, LeBron, Jared Allen. Again, defense, I'd have some real concerns there, but maybe that's something that could work out for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't think Brian Windhorst says that kind of stuff out of hand or says that kind of stuff without having heard that kind of thing could be on the table. But I like the idea of LeBron finishing his career somewhere like that, somewhere where he can go. I think the potential is there to win, and somewhere that is meaningful to him with a fan base that is already invested in him. I think you could say the same with Miami. Miami is invested in LeBron, but not the way that Cleveland is. Not the way that Cleveland is. So that's why personally I like that idea if you're able to move some pieces around in Cleveland. Should the Cavs do that? Should the Cavs move on from Evan Mobley just to make room for LeBron James? I don't know. I can't say that. I could see a world where the Cavs are better off sticking with Evan Mobley and moving forward there. From a LeBron perspective, I like the idea of him back with the Cavs. All right. You're concerned about spacing. Your solution is trade Mobley for a horrible shooter in Jaylen Brown. I think the quality of looks, we saw Jaylen Brown on a team where he had to be the guy and the quality of shots was not great. I think Jaylen Brown, who shot 35% from three last season, with the shot quality he would get playing with those guys, would be in much better situation. I get it from a Lakers perspective. Doesn't feel great to see LeBron, to hear LeBron will sign for a minimum. Obviously, he wasn't willing to do that for the Lakers, right? From a Lakers perspective, that doesn't feel great. LeBron's willing to sign with the minimum somewhere. And the reporting that was from Shams Charania in the last 24 hours that LeBron and the Lakers just didn't see eye to eye on what is a championship team tells you what LeBron thought about the Lakers' ability to win a championship right now. Tells you what LeBron thought about the Lakers and the path that they're on currently. And this has not been a great 24 hours for the Lakers. I still say you got to see what ultimately happens. Where does the dust settle with LA? But yeah, it's absolutely not been ideal. We're going to talk about Marcus Smart in just a moment. We're going to talk about John Collins in just a moment as well. Speaking of the Lakers, and while we're on the LeBron James front, this is from Dan Wojcicki of The Athletic. It's why, according to league sources granted anonymity to discuss front office strategy, James' name hadn't been mentioned much in the Lakers team building conversations. We got a little news here. The Celtics have started strongly shopping Jaylen Brown and are countering offers from 8 to 10 teams. That tells you Jaylen Brown probably on his way out of Boston. Maybe that deal I just talked about with Cleveland. But if the Celtics are not just listening, if they're countering offers, if they're giving counter offers, we heard last night that their offer or their asking price is going to have to come down in order to get a Jaylen Brown trade done because teams think they're asking for too much. But if they're countering, that tells you the Celtics are ready to turn the page from Jaylen Brown. Damn it, I really need to build myself a breaking news button for stuff like this. That tells you that a Jaylen Brown trade, very, very likely. We know the Celtics are rumored to be looking for a big. Do the Cavs do it? Do the Cavs say Evan Mobley for Jaylen Brown and let's go? And is that the path then for LeBron James to return to Cleveland? Anyway, the Dan Wojcicki piece here. James would need to be shoehorned into whatever else the Lakers would do. I do think there's some truth to that as well. The Lakers are clearly building this team around Luka Doncic, and everything was going to be through the lens of Luka. Now, LeBron could fit into that because he's so malleable, he can do anything. He can fit into whatever team you want, whatever role you want him to play. No problem. He can do it. He's LeBron James. But it wouldn't be LeBron, we're building this team with you. It would be LeBron, you're joining in with us. And this is a team that's not built for you. It's not built by you. And the writing's kind of on the wall at that point. Does this allow the Lakers to fully pivot? Yes. And that does not necessarily mean the grass is greener. That does not necessarily mean that will lead them into a better era. It just means it will allow them to fully go 2 feet into a Luka era. Otherwise, it was going to be, we're heading into the Luka era and LeBron, okay, you can tag along if you like. That's the implication, right? That's the implication that LeBron James may be the GOAT. I don't know. I don't want to make that argument. Don't particularly care. But LeBron James, one of the greatest ever, and you can tag along. You can ride in the sidecar, LeBron. Luka's driving the motorcycle. You get to ride in the sidecar, LeBron James. I can see why that wouldn't sit well with LeBron. I can see where he would say, nah, let me go find my own situation. Let me go find my own thing. And it may not be much better in terms of LeBron hitching a ride, but you can say there would be teams that would perhaps morph their roster around LeBron, specifically this Cleveland stuff I'm talking about. If Cleveland says, LeBron, we care enough about you coming back home that we will turn Evan Mobley into a guy that's going to fit better next to you, that certainly feels a lot more welcoming than here's the sidecar. LeBron, you hop in here. You can ride it. You can ride with us, but only if you're willing to come along. We're not going to be doing the steering. I could see a situation like that playing out. So LeBron decided to grab control of the final pages of his career. Does it sting a bit? If you hear LeBron's willing to play for a minimum, if you hear LeBron's willing to take this big pay cut, yeah, because you think about what the Lakers could look like with LeBron on a minimum, what the Lakers could look like with LeBron on a taxpayer mid-level, hell, with LeBron on a full mid-level, what they could potentially look like, what they could potentially do. But clearly they were at a crossroads. And it was only a matter of time before they parted ways. It was coming. It was coming within the next year, within the next 2 years, whatever. And all I can do is wish them the best. And you move forward if you're the Lakers. Again, Lakers fans not feeling great after some of the other news this morning. Let's get into this. Marcus Smart to the Houston Rockets. Now, the deal Marcus Smart got with the Houston Rockets, yikes. Even the Pelinka special, player option. Free agent guard Marcus Smart, according to Shams Charania, has agreed to a 2-year, $13 million deal with the Houston Rockets, plus a player option for the second season. The former Defensive Player of the Year reunites with Ime Udoka for significant opportunity in the Rockets' backcourt. Okay, so remember, the news is Marcus Smart to the Rockets. Up, and there it is. Look at this. We got more breaking news. What did we just talk about? Means Vooch back means Mo Wagner's gone. Mo Wagner, according to Shams Charania, to the Brooklyn Nets. Mo Wagner to the Brooklyn Nets on a 2-year, $19 million deal. A mutual option guaranteeing $19 million while allowing either side to opt in, not opt out. That's interesting. I'll talk to my pal Keith Smith about exactly what that means. But Mo Wagner, a 2-year, $19 million deal, stating it as either side can opt into it, not opt out. Isn't that inherently the same thing? That a player or a team could opt out of the deal? Interesting. We'll talk about this mutual option situation. But nonetheless, we're going to talk about Norman Powell in a minute. What I am looking at these as, and by the way, Keon Ellis also to the Brooklyn Nets, these kind of veteran players getting money bigger than you would necessarily expect, going to teams like Chicago with Norman Powell, Mo Wagner now with the Brooklyn Nets. What are these? These are, I'm going to call them don't be bottom three deals. That's what these are. These are deals teams are signing with the eye towards, can this veteran come in? Can we pay this guy a little bit more than what a contending team would offer and give this guy a bit more to sacrifice contention in exchange for helping us not be bottom three? We're not going to be good, but we don't want to be bottom three. Norman Powell, come on down, right, to the Chicago Bulls. That's the implication there. Help us not be bottom three. Mo Wagner to the Brooklyn Nets. Help us not be bottom three. In fact, here it is. Norman Powell to the Bulls. Let's just talk about it right now, and then we'll get back to Marcus Smart. Norman Powell to the Bulls on a don't be bottom three deal. Okay, that's what this is all about. Remember, if you're bottom three, your lottery chances actually go down. And the Brooklyn Nets, a little bit different in that they actually have a pick swap on their draft pick, so their draft pick is encumbered anyway. But nonetheless, the idea is we're going to be bad, but let's try not to be really bad. Norman Powell got a 2-year, $45 million deal with the Bulls. The reporting is the second year is not guaranteed on this. And if that's the case, this is very much a Bruce Brown-esque deal. If you guys remember that deal from, I don't see Shams didn't have that. The second year's non-guaranteed, or that's a team option. But nonetheless, very reminiscent of the Bruce Brown deal, where he's getting overpaid significantly more than, say, the Miami Heat were going to offer him. And this is the Chicago Bulls saying, hey, Norman Powell, we need somebody to come in here, put up 20-plus points per game, and make sure we don't finish bottom three so that we have the best shot possible at a high-level draft pick. You think about what the Bulls did in the draft. They had some nice pieces. I love the Dalen Swain pick. Caleb Wilson number 4 was a great pick. Look, the Bulls are heading in the right direction. Now they're making sure that while we get these young guys growing, while Josh Giddey continues to develop, while Modest Buzelis continues to develop, this is our opportunity to add a piece and not lose too many games. Okay, we're not going to try to lose too many games here. We're going to try to not be bottom three. Help us do that as we're building up our young players. Okay, that's the Norman Powell deal. Let's get back to Marcus Smart, though, to the Rockets. So this deal for Smart, remember what we try to do here is not just say, hey, Marcus Smart to the Rockets. That's the news, right? That's the headline. But what does that really mean? What does that mean for the Houston Rockets now moving forward? What is the context of all of that? Now, first of all, I think Houston actually needs more shot creation. Marcus can provide that a little bit as a secondary creator, so I don't mind the fit there from that regard. Certainly fits the defensive ethos of that team. So you love that for the Houston Rockets, but the price tag tells you something. And the fact that this is a 2-year deal and not a 3-year deal for Marcus Smart, here we'll get back to this. The fact that it's a 2-year deal and not a 3-year deal for Marcus Smart, what that does is that opens up, because that will hard cap the Rockets at the second apron and not the first apron. What that means is that the Rockets should have the ability to still match any reasonable offer for Tari Eason. Had Smart come in on a 3-year deal, that would have put them into a position where they are not using the taxpayer MLE. And next thing you know, they find themselves hard capped at the first apron. Or had he come in above the taxpayer MLE, that would have involved using the full mid-level exception, which would have hard capped them at the first apron. And what that would have meant is that there would be a number at which a team could come in and give Tari Eason a reasonable offer, and the Rockets, without making a move, would effectively not be able to match it. So they didn't want to trigger that hard cap at the first apron, and the Rockets get this done. 2-year, $13 million deal. I would imagine that getting Smart to do a 2-year deal at that number, part of the concession was a player option in the second season of the deal. That's the word right now. The second season is a player option. Marcus Smart locks in $13 million. That is a steal of a price for Marcus Smart. We know how important he was for the Lakers last season. People saying, well, why didn't Lakers just give him that? It's a great question, and I wish I had a great answer for that. I wish I had something to tell you guys like, hey, this is why they didn't do it. All I could say is all will be revealed, hopefully in a positive way. But right now it appears the Lakers, and we're going to get to them in just a minute when we get to the restricted free agent bigs, it seems like they're all in on Jalen Duren and Walker Kessler, landing one of those two. And restricted free agents have not moved in years. It's been years since a team has been able to pry an RFA away from somebody else. And that's Luke Kennard. We talked about it last night, signed with the Phoenix Suns. So the Lakers, you look at the guys that they would not want to lose. You look at the guys that were free agents, and we talked about why they were able to get to free agency. The way the Lakers were able to get to cap space was with guys that they wouldn't necessarily want to lose. Rui Hachimura, LeBron James, Marcus Smart, Luke Kennard. They're all gone right now, except for Rui, not official, but there's a lot of rumblings connecting him to the Nets, connecting him to the Spurs, a few other teams as well. As of right now, I don't know exactly what they're up to. Right now, their cap space path was achieved by losing guys they wouldn't want. It's not like Jared Vanderbilt and Dalton Connect dropped off their books and that's how they had cap space. They got cap space by losing guys that were some of the best free agents on the market. So what will that situation ultimately look like? I don't know, but that certainly hurts for a Lakers team that badly needs defense. We'll talk about them in a minute, but you know, Sandro Mamukelashvili, Quentin Grimes have been very strongly linked to the Lakers. Even if you get Walker Kessler, even if you get Jalen Duren, I've got real questions about defensively what that team would look like with Marcus Smart on the way out the door. And really, this is, I think about last year for Houston, where they went and got Dorian Finney-Smith, took him from the Lakers, and it blew up in their faces. And to the point where right now, even though I thought the Rockets did a great job protecting themselves in the Dorian Finney-Smith situation with that contract, non-guaranteed after the second year, so they can get out of it. No big deal. Boom, gone. Third year, fourth year, non-guaranteed. Very easy for them to wash their hands of the Dorian Finney-Smith deal. It's such a bad deal for them that they're trying to get out of it right now. They can't even tolerate one more year of Dorian Finney-Smith on their books at $13.3 million. And thank God, from the Rocket side, they protected themselves by making the final 2 years be non-guaranteed. But it's been so intolerable that they want to move on from him, and that's to help maintain flexibility in order to keep Tari Eason. There had been talk that they were trying to move off of Dorian Finney-Smith in order to give Marcus Smart a bigger deal, in order to give him a third year. Obviously, they weren't able to accomplish that. But the thing about this Smart deal is, okay, let's say worst case scenario, it goes south. Let's say worst case scenario, Marcus Smart goes back to being injured. Let's say he goes back to what we saw before. He had a pretty healthy season as a Laker this last season. Let's say Marcus Smart goes back to being the dude that we saw the year before that, who played 34 games, or he goes back to being the dude we saw before that, being 20 games. Is that ideal for the Rockets? No, that'd be tough. But it's $6 million. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world if Marcus Smart, who you're taking a little bit of an injury risk on, winds up being injured. Again, not ideal. You burn a roster spot. You burn $13 million. That's far from a positive situation. But $13 million over 2 years, that's already built in there. That's already built in when we look at the Rockets and their risk situation here. Looks like my pal Keith Smith, always on time, did chime in with exactly what's going on the Mo Wagner mutual option. Let's give that a quick look. Not an actual CBA term, but a good descriptor for what's becoming a popular trend in the NBA. The final year of the contract, the player has an option, but if they opt in, the deal is partial or non-guaranteed, thus mutual option. So it's a player option combined with a non-guarantee. And so is it a mutual option? Effectively, yes, but that's not really what it is. It's a player option with a non-guarantee. So, for example, if you're a Lakers fan, Nick Smith Jr. was kind of related to that in that he was a team option with a non-guarantee. So if the Lakers had picked up his team option and then changed their mind, they ultimately just waived him, but they could have waived him at a later time with a non-guaranteed deal. So that's what a mutual option is there. Always timely, Keith Smith. Gotta love that. All right. Let me get into a few of your chat questions, comments, all that sort of stuff. I got to talk a bit more about the Lakers because we've got a little bit of news on them with the Jalen Duren situation, with Walker Kessler, all of that. Actually, you know what? Let me finish that, and then I'll get to your questions, comments. Let me finish the news here. Mamukelashvili and Quentin Grimes to the Lakers. I've heard this too. It's sounding like the Lakers are getting Mamukelashvili and Quentin Grimes. Sounded like this has happened. People I've talked to have heard this is likely. That said, though, I do want to caution everybody. It was likely the Lakers were getting DeAnthony Melton last year. Last summer, this time last year, DeAnthony Melton was being penciled in as a Laker until suddenly he wasn't. So nothing is done until it's done. Nothing is done until it's agreed to. But it sounds like teams are operating as though Sandro Mamukelashvili and Quentin Grimes, who spent a little time in Dallas with Luka, are on their way to LA. Now, both players are expected to get right around $10 million. I'm telling you right now, one of them is very likely to get $9 million. Why $9 million? Because that's the room exception. And that's what the Lakers will use after they finish spending their free agency money, spending their cap space. They'll use that $9 million to get Mamukelashvili or Quentin Grimes. Grimes puts a lot of pressure on the rim, not always the best finisher there. I'll do more of a breakdown over on Lakers Nation when we get into like the Lakers specific stuff there. But there are some things to like. I'm a little worried that people are overrating Grimes defensively. Grimes is not a replacement defensively for Marcus Smart. That is a step down there defensively, but offensively, he can give you a bit of pop. His catch and shoot three, a bit better than his off the dribbles. That gives you a little bit of shooting, but not a great three-point shooter. But for a JJ Redick that asks for guys who can dribble, pass, shoot, I think he does check some boxes there for you. Gives you a bit of athleticism, a little bit vertical in the way that he plays, a little too straight up and down on his drives for my liking, but does have some athleticism, bit of pop to his game when he gets into the paint. And again, has experience playing with Luka. I would have to imagine that the Lakers would not pursue Quentin Grimes without having a chat with Luka first about going after him and their time together as teammates. Now, meanwhile, Mamukelashvili, look, he's a stretch big. And that's what is becoming all the rage around the NBA. Teams are wanting to pull Victor Wembanyama out of the paint. And so Sandro Mamukelashvili, 39% from deep last season. That's as a Toronto Raptor. You can imagine the looks he would get playing with Luka Doncic. Can help you out a little bit on the boards as well. Not a great defensive big, but certainly a weapon and gives you a different look at the center position. Let's assume, I haven't heard anything specific about this, but let's assume that Jackson Hayes winds up returning. Right now, you would have Ayton if Mamukelashvili winds up being the move for the Lakers and Jackson Hayes. Maybe Ayton winds up going out in one of these Jalen Duren, Walker Kessler deals, something like that. But that's where it's at right now. It does seem like Quentin Grimes, Sandro Mamukelashvili, pencil them in for the time being, very tentatively, maybe write lightly in pencil, sort of easy to erase. But Sandro Mamukelashvili, Quentin Grimes, I would expect one to get $10 million per year, the other one to get $9 million per year, because that will be the room exception. And then you build from there. Now, how many years? Is the dreaded player option thrown in? That's all stuff that we'll have to wait and see. The other piece to this, Jake Fisher, late last night, the Lakers find themselves at the center of the NBA's center marketplace. They are looking at, right now, Walker Kessler, Jalen Duren. We got news last night from Sam Amick that the Lakers are getting a second meeting today, and not this time because the first meeting went poorly, a second meeting with Jalen Duren. If you remember, years and years ago, in another lifetime, the Lakers had to have a second meeting with LaMarcus Aldridge in free agency because they botched the first one so badly. Obviously, they did not wind up getting LaMarcus Aldridge. But this second meeting with Jalen Duren is reportedly because, or in part because, the first meeting went so well. They also told Jalen Duren that they view him as a max level player. Now, none of that matters. They also met with Walker Kessler, and that meeting reportedly went very well. And the general perception around the NBA is that Walker Kessler could indeed be their primary target. The league's worst kept secret, Jazz restricted free agent center Walker Kessler, this is Jake Fisher writing here, has been presumed to be the Lakers' top summer target. However, restricted free agency is a pain. And if you're going to pry away an RFA, well, it's very, very difficult to do it. You can offer a big offer sheet and make it as thorny as possible. Throw a player option at the end. You know Rob Pelinka is going to do it anyway. You know it's coming. A player option at the end of it. You could try to pay 50% of the salary up front, so before the season even starts, just to make the financial ramifications difficult to deal with. You could make it a 3-year deal with the player option. Whatever you want to do, make it as difficult as possible for a team to match or to want to match that offer. You can go to $37 million, let's say, which is a number that's out there for Walker Kessler, which is way more than what the Jazz want to pay. All of that to try to get them to blink. Or you negotiate a sign and trade and you say, look, Utah, look, Detroit, we know you don't want to match this offer. We know you don't want to match this offer, but why don't we both benefit from this? We don't want to throw all these thorny things into this deal. We don't want to make this deal as painful as possible. And you don't want to lose the player for nothing, nor do you want to match this deal as is. You scratch our back, we'll scratch yours. Let's make this a sign and trade, and then we'll avoid all the nonsense of restricted free agency. Let's do that. And then Utah or Detroit would get something in return. And we're probably talking draft capital. I talked about it with Keith Smith last night. We were live on the front office show. I talked about if I'm Detroit, say, and I'm losing Jalen Duren, okay, DeAndre Ayton's coming back. And that's not because DeAndre Ayton's the best center out there, but he's a center. He's a serviceable center. And he's on an expiring contract. And if I'm the Lakers, I'm trying to see, can we pay you a little extra and get you to take Jared Vanderbilt? Can we get you to take Dalton Connect? Can you move some of the salary? The more salary the Lakers in a theoretical sign and trade send out, the more cap space flexibility that provides them to go do other things. So are the Lakers willing to overpay based on what market value is Walker Kessler? Are they willing to overpay Jalen Duren? We know Luka is a fan of Jalen Duren. That probably matters in that situation when ultimately, you know where the power lies? in the hands of the Utah Jazz and the Detroit Pistons, because they have the ability to say, you know what, we're not going to do a sign and trade. And there's nothing that says they have to. They can say, we're not even going to listen to trade offers. And we're going to match anything you put out there. We don't care. Give them a full max. We will match it. The only recourse for the Lakers at that point would be to test their resolve and give them that big offer and make it as thorny as possible and see if they do. See if they match it. And at that point, if that happens, and we are talking about midnight on July 7th, 11:59 p.m. on July 7th, technically, midnight on July 8th, that deal gets matched, then the Lakers just spent the first week of free agency when most of the deals got done, losing Marcus Smart, losing LeBron James, maybe losing Rui Hachimura, losing Luke Kennard, and would have very, very little to show for it. They would need a hell of a backup plan to go into effect from there. By the way, a little bit more news, one more signing. Jevon Carter, a one-year veteran minimum deal, $3.5 million to stay with the Orlando Magic. I like Jevon Carter. Think that's a good fit for him to stick in Orlando. Defense first guard, can occasionally knock down a three, veteran. No problem with that at all. All right. Again, does any of this sound great for the Lakers? No, and I'll talk about it a bit more on Lakers Nation in a little while, but none of this sounds great from a Lakers perspective so far. Let's see where the dust settles, though. Let's see what ultimately happens here. But right now, all you've heard from the Lakers side is they lost Marcus Smart, they lost Luke Kennard, they lost LeBron James, Rui Hachimura may be on the way out. All the guys that having them as free agents created your cap space, they're all not only on the way out the door, but out the door on contracts that you would say, that's a bargain. Luke Kennard at $6 million. Hell, Marcus Smart at $6.5 million. If I had to pick between the two, give me Marcus Smart all day, every day. That's a great bargain. That's not a great situation. And by the way, I didn't mention it in the news section already, but John Collins got a deal with the Pistons. What's interesting is it sounds like only 1 year is guaranteed of this deal. And there's some non-guaranteed money in there, but that's a great fit for the Pistons. Remember, context matters here. So what does this ultimately say about the Detroit Pistons and their plans? I think this tells us kind of similar to Vooch going back to Orlando. What does that tell us? Tells us Mo Wagner's on the way out. I do think that John Collins to the Pistons tells us that Tobias Harris is on his way out of Detroit. Now, this is a $51 million deal. This is a little bit more than the mid-level. So it'll be interesting to see how the Pistons ultimately get there. That could be a sign and trade with the Clippers, or that could be the Pistons do some things, maybe with Duncan Robinson to clear cap space. But a little bit more than a 3-year, than a mid-level deal. Maybe it shifts a little bit, and the Shams was just being a little aggressive with the reporting on it. But this is slightly more than the mid-level. So keep an eye on that. But I think that's a pretty good indication that Tobias Harris is out in Detroit. Especially if this is just a 1-year deal with the rest non-guaranteed. I really love that for the Pistons. I'm a big fan of John Collins and his game. I think he's a great fit in Detroit. We'll see what else the Pistons are going to do. Ultimately, they added Isaiah Joe already on the trade market in that deal that they made with the Oklahoma City Thunder. I still would like to see a little bit more playmaking coming to Detroit, and maybe that's still on the way. But I think John Collins is a great fit, can be a little bit of a lob threat too for them. I can see some lobs coming from Cade Cunningham over to John Collins. He has the ability to space the floor and get out to the three. And if Tobias Harris is on the way out, John Collins is a younger player, very impactful player, a guy who I think has been underrated for a lot of his career. And this is a great, great signing, I think, for the Detroit Pistons. All right. Let's get into a few of your questions and comments. I do have to run in about 15 minutes. I've got a radio spot in Hawaii, but I do plan on jumping over to Lakers Nation in just a bit here and doing some stuff there as well. So just be on the lookout for that. What's with everyone getting 1-year guaranteed deals? So that's a great question. And I think what we're seeing happen around the NBA marketplace right now is we're seeing a lot of teams that are that are very much protecting themselves. Negative value contracts have been very, very difficult to move. Why, if you're a Lakers fan, why have the Lakers had such a hard time moving on from Jared Vanderbilt? Well, he's a negative value deal with multiple years on it. So when we see 1-year deals coming out or deals with team options, deals that are non-guaranteed, those are providing teams with optionality, right, is the word of the day. Those are providing teams with the ability to get out of the deal and the flexibility to move on if they need to do so. Teams, I think, are much more aware of the need to protect themselves and protect their ability to pivot. Now, what we are seeing is when a team is giving a player option, except in the case of perhaps Austin Reeves, there's a few others, but player options are typically winding up being added in as a benefit to a player in lieu of salary, right? Marcus Smart is certainly worth more than $6.5 million average annual value, yet that's what he's getting. So what does he get? He gets the player option for the second year on top, rather than, hey, you're getting overpaid plus a player option. No, you don't get both. If you want the player option, we're going to have to put you on a deal that we feel like if you pick that up, even if it doesn't work out, we're going to be able to take that pain of you not working out and then picking up that player option, even if we would prefer that you didn't. $6.5 million not going to break the Houston Rockets if Marcus Smart picks up that player option. So we're seeing more and more teams concerned with future flexibility and trying to make sure that they protect themselves against having a negative value contract on their books. Talk about moving forward, cohesion, but then max out Duren. He's got a decent on-ball game, but Kessler is a way better fit. Exactly what works around Luka and AR. I agree. I've said I would prefer Walker Kessler over Jalen Duren. I went through a lot of Jalen Duren footage and such last night. Look, the man is a ferocious dunker. He is a lob threat. But Cade Cunningham did a great job working with him last year. And Luka is an even better passer, distributor, all of that. And I can see where if I'm Luka, I'm thinking, man, this guy is vicious. Can Jalen Duren be my Amari Stoudemire? I think of Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire. When I see Jalen Duren, I think about what he could be with Luka Doncic. Could he beat that? But you're at a real deficiency on the defensive side of the ball, particularly with his rim protection. 6'10", little, you could argue he's undersized, but 250, monstrous rebounder. Athletically, he's on a different level than Walker Kessler. But Walker Kessler is a different level defensive player than Jalen Duren. So, look, you can make an argument for either player, and you can make it a strong argument either way. Part of me falls back on Jalen Duren is an all-star. Jalen Duren is a third-team All-NBA player, and somehow I'm preferring a guy who played 5 games over him. Like, part of me wants to stop and say, I am overthinking it. You take the third-team All-NBA guy over the dude who played 5 games and has never made an all-star team and has never made All-NBA. But I do think the upside for Walker Kessler, if you buy the medicals, is he could be the best rim protector in the NBA, not named Victor Wembanyama. And personally, I think rim protection is a very, very important thing for a Lakers team that's already, I think, going to be lacking in terms of perimeter defense. That said, am I going to be complaining if they get Jalen Duren? No. Is either guy a clear-cut max, take my money type guy? No. But frankly, to get a restricted free agent, you're going to have to overpay. Now, I think the other point to this, without going full Lakers here on this show, would be which guy can Luka elevate the most? Which guy hits another level? And I think both guys would improve playing with Luka, but which guy truly hits another level playing with Luka Doncic? That's a big question for the Lakers, because you got to try to find players that you think could not just succeed with your team, but hit another level if you're going to pay him that kind of money. You are projecting, if you're going to pay him that kind of money, that they're going to continue to improve. And I know third-team All-NBA would already suggest max-level player, but if you're going to give him that, Jalen Duren, that money, because remember, he got that in part due to some injuries around the NBA, you probably need to see him continue to grow. At 22 years old, I think it's a safe bet that he'll continue to improve, but I do have concerns about the rim protection piece, especially if it's Jalen Duren, Sandro Mamukelashvili. For a Lakers team that was 29th in the NBA in rim protection last year, you're not making strides in that area. DA, Dalton Connect, Rui for Duren, double sign and trade, no picks. I would imagine the Pistons would want picks. Dalton Connect doesn't have value. DeAndre Ayton, sure, can be thrown in as an expiring contract. But if I'm Detroit, I'd probably be more willing just to match on Jalen Duren than do that. And do the Pistons need, like, could the Pistons just say, hey, we're going to sign Rui anyway, especially if they're going to try to go the cap space route? Though, are the Pistons even in on Rui Hachimura after getting John Collins? Probably not. Time for another protest. Pelinka needs his assets beat. If he fails this summer, we need to say collectively go to crypto and join him. Yeah, look, and drop him. This is a big gamble. There is a very real world where Walker Kessler and or Jalen Duren do not wind up being Lakers. And that's restricted free agency. This is a big gamble. These are the big swings. These are the best players on the market, not named LeBron James. There's a world where the Lakers come out of this summer. Walker Kessler stays in Utah. Jalen Duren stays in Detroit. The Lakers come out of the summer with Mitch Robinson. I would imagine that could be a big part of the backup plan. Mitch Robinson, Mamukelashvili, Quentin Grimes, and maybe you give what's left over to Rui or something. And that is unacceptable. That is a failure of an offseason for the Lakers, to be clear. If that's the world that we're living in, that is a failure of an offseason for the Lakers. If that's ultimately where they land, that is putting pieces together, just trying to put a Band-Aid over things and kicking the can down the road a little bit. That would not bode well, I would imagine, for the future of Rob Pelinka. Coffee for Trevor. I'm more of an energy drink guy, but yeah, I definitely got up earlier than I intended. I lifted a few weights last night after we got off the air with Keith, just to kind of get that final bit of energy out. But the news started coming in early this morning, a little bit earlier than I was hoping. But you know what? I love this time of year. No state income tax wanted to play for Ime Simple. That could very well be it. I'm not going to blame the Lakers either if Marcus simply said, I want to be a Houston Rocket. You know, if the Lakers said we'll match that number, and Smart, who is a free agent, we tend to think, and this is not a Lakers thing, this is fans of every team, tends to think if my team offers the same amount for our guy as another team, my guy's going to stay. And then when the guy takes an offer somewhere else, it's, well, then clearly we didn't offer that. Maybe they did. And he just didn't want to. Maybe the Clippers offered. Whoa. I definitely need a breaking news button. Forget Mitchell Robinson. He is off the board. Good Lord. Mitchell Robinson to the Boston Celtics. Lakers fans, that should have been the fallback option. Now it is really Rob Williams is off the board. Now it's really Walker Kessler, Jalen Duren, or bust for the Lakers. Mitch Robinson, 3-year, $47 million deal, player option in the third season. That is a lot of money and a lot of guaranteed money for Mitch Robinson. What does that come out to? Average annual. It's too early in the morning to do math. What does that come out to? Average annual value there for Mitch Robinson. 15.6. So that's MLE money. That's the MLE that the Celtics are giving Mitch Robinson. Off the board. Woo! My goodness. That's MLE money for Mitch Robinson to the Boston Celtics. Wow. That is a lot. That's a lot of guaranteed years. And this is why the Knicks obviously weren't going to go there, because that would put them into the second apron to give them this kind of money. But that's the Celtics. They wanted a big. Does this take the Celtics out of the Jalen Duren chase? Does this change the Celtics what they would target in a Jaylen Brown trade? We'd heard they wanted a big back. They could still get a big, but do they absolutely need to get one? Now you've got Neemias Queta. You've got Mitch Robinson. That's a pretty sturdy addition. Right now, again, even teams that you wouldn't necessarily look at and say, this team absolutely must get a big, they're adding them. This is the year of big men. This is the worst time in the last decade plus to be looking for a big man out there on the market. The bigs are back in fashion, and this is where we're at right now. This is where we're at. My goodness. Mitch Robinson to the Boston Celtics. So, Brett Siegel saying, with the Celtics focusing their attention on Jalen Duren and Walker Kessler, the Celtics end up swooping in and signing Mitch Robinson for what looks to be the full mid-level exception. 3 years, $47.4 million. Average annual value of $15.8 million. So the Lakers are focused on getting other stuff done. Mitch Robinson, essentially, this is Mitch Robinson saying, I'm not waiting. Yeah, these guys are giving me the full MLE. I'm not going to wait for the Lakers to figure out whether or not they're getting Walker Kessler or Jalen Duren. I'm taking the deal. It's on the table right now. It is now Jalen Duren, Walker Kessler, or bust for the Lakers, unless there's some type of backup plan or something. Whoa! Huge breaking news. Walker Kessler to the Lakers. Good Lord. Shams Charania. Holy moly. The Lakers are acquiring Walker Kessler from the Jazz for unprotected. This is both unprotected and swaps. 4-year, $130 million deal. Walker Kessler is a Los Angeles Laker. Oh my goodness. There's the deal. The Lakers get Walker Kessler and they give up everything to get him. That's everything that's not nailed down to the floor to get Walker Kessler. Both firsts unprotected plus pick swaps to the Utah Jazz. 4-year, $130 million deal. That's an average annual value of $32.5 million. And the Lakers get their rim protector. And now I would expect to see a whole lot of moves going on. The Snowtime Lakers, apparently, all the picks the Lakers have, the Lakers went all in to get Walker Kessler. My goodness. Gotta love the NBA offseason. That is a big time deal for LA. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. That is a lot of money for Walker Kessler. And I'm supposed to be doing, I should not have agreed to do radio today. I am supposed to be on the radio in 1 minute. In order to talk to ESPN in Hawaii to do radio. All right. My goodness. Breaking news there. Walker Kessler to the Los Angeles Lakers. Wow. All right. Everybody, do we still have picks? No. Picks are gone. Picks are gone. All right, everybody. I'm going to have to jump over to Lakers Nation in just a moment and cover that. I will get back here to Bulletin in just a bit. I'm going to save some of your super chats here, but obviously my obligation to Lakers Nation is to cover the Lakers news over there. So I am going to have to do that in just a moment. And I'm supposed to be doing radio as well. I don't know how I'm going to juggle all that. I will figure all of that out, though. All right, everybody. Let's go. Appreciate all of you being here. If you haven't done so yet, guys, hit the subscribe button. I'm covering the entire NBA here on the Basketball Bulletin. Hit the subscribe button. Like this. I'm going to jump over to Lakers Nation. We're going to talk about this Walker Kessler situation. And, of course, there's going to be a lot more happening around a wild NBA offseason. If you're a Lakers fan, this is the start. This is the first domino. A lot more is now going to fall into place. All right. Thank you again, everybody. Hit that subscribe button. See ya and stay safe.